Welcome everyone to your EDGR698 Action Research Capstone course. My name is Dr. Laurie Novi and I will be helping you on your journey in this video. The purpose for this presentation is to assist capstone students with an overview, expectations and policies, and also to offer some tips for success as well as some helpful resources. The agenda will be to cover these items in the order that they appear on the screen. Congratulations for making it to your capstone course. I'm sure it's been a long, difficult journey, but also a challenging and rewarding one. And I'm hoping that as you progress through this course, you will find that this is a wonderful way to culminate your program. Some pointers for success in this course are to first establish a time management plan. Make sure that you're on time with your assignments, meeting the deadlines, and also by posting on time in your discussions. Also to make sure that you're reading and addressing the feedback that I provide to you, not only in the discussion forums, but on your assignments as well. Also, it's a good idea to have a strong vision. Actually see yourself finishing the course and the program, walking in the graduation, what you will be doing with your degree once you complete the course. Communicate often. Sometimes things happen in life, I understand that, and I would like you to make sure you're keeping me informed if something's interfering with your work. Attitude can also play a big part in success. Don't let failure be an option. The course, as an overview, there is no face-to-face contact time in this course. It's completely asynchronous. Therefore, it's very important to keep communication lines open. Interaction with your classmates and myself takes place mainly in discussions and also on the feedback, so make sure you're checking on the feedback that I give you. Make sure also that you follow the assignment due dates. As a heads up, see the following chart. This chart shows you that it's a 5-week course. It gives you all the information on the right-hand side for when the due dates are. Note that the highlighted portions for week 3 and 4 are the times when you will be implementing your project. For the expectations and policies of the course, make sure that you are submitting professional work. That means checking for mechanics and grammar, making sure that you are abiding by the APA standards that the university has prescribed to. And also make sure that you're being an ethical researcher. That means that you are being a transparent researcher. In other words, you are giving the reader a window to your research, very clearly letting the reader see all the steps and everything that you've done to come up with the results that you do come up with in your research. That way, if they need to come back and replicate, replication is a key word here, they can do so easily without having to figure out what gaps that you have left in your research. Make sure that you realize goals do not have to be met. If you have a goal to improve instruction in some way or your methods, that doesn't mean that the procedure that you are trying has to actually work. You want it to work. You set off with your research in a way that you want it to work. But the idea of an experiment is to try it, to see if it works. So you want to try it, see if it works, and if it doesn't work, it's still valuable information for your readers because they will also see that this particular strategy possibly doesn't work and therefore might need to do more research in that area. It could be also that your limitations are in the way of making that work. For instance, some students in my last class had to get through their implementation during the last week of school, which can also, as you know as teachers, make the students a little bit antsy and possibly not focused like they normally would be during any other course or time of the year. So also you want to make sure you're acknowledging those limitations because that helps with that replication that I mentioned. You really do not want to have any identifiers. It's very important. There's an IRB process that you are exempt from. However, the university still looks at that, and there's still standards that are federal standards that you have to abide by, and one of them is to protect the participants in your study. And that means some stranger on the street should not be able to figure out from your writing exactly the person you're talking about and get back to that person on that, because that can be harmful. So it's very, very important that you do not have identifiers in your study. If you are coming up with, specifics in your target population and your demographics and that sort of thing, or you're talking about particular students, you really need to come up with pseudonyms or ways to identify them that would not reveal their true identities. Also, of course, you want to avoid plagiarism. That goes without saying, but it needs to be stated here simply because we've had students who don't know how to cite correctly and therefore are guilty of plagiarism, and that's a very important concept to make sure that you completely understand. Also, another expectation is that any of the work that is turned in, if you feel that you want to revise it, you are allowed to revise, but only 5 days after it's been returned to you. The only exception that I have to that rule is for your literature review, because in this course, the literature review is due the first week, and I realize that some of you need to really add and focus on that literature review, and that might be helpful to give you a few more weeks. So I ask that you have your literature reviews in no later than the 4th week of the course. So you have a good solid month to really add some depth and expand that literature review from the beginning. So it's really more of a work in progress. That's the way I look at that particular assignment. But the rest of the assignments, I want you to have them in on time. And then if you do receive a grade back that you are not satisfied with and you want a higher grade, you are allowed to revise it once you get the feedback from me, as long as that revision is submitted within 5 days after you receive that feedback. Work is also not accepted 5 days beyond the due date. So if you are needing more time on something, you're going to have to let me know through email. But typically the due dates are there for a reason in this class. It's very rigorous and it's important. And with the due dates as they are, if you skip them, time can get away from you very easily. And I don't want anyone to fail the course as a result of that. Some reminders: make sure you are implementing. This course requires implementation. If you cannot implement, then you're going to have to look into possibly taking the thesis course. So please contact me immediately if that's impossible for you to implement. You also need to follow APA formatting closely. Some people are being a little bit loose with that on their action research documentation form, and that cannot take place. It needs to be APA throughout the entire program. So make sure that every assignment you're submitting is following those APA rules. And it's your final project, so you want it to shine. Please establish a time management plan now. I know I said it before, but it's extremely important for you to figure out some time that you can actually spend on focusing on your assignment. Some tips for this course. The first one is to be thorough. Leave no stone unturned as you write up your methodology, which will be your action steps that you're taking. You want to paint such a clear picture that the reader could actually follow the exact steps and come up with the same results if that person had the same type of population you had. That makes your research much more credible and valid. So show every step you take in your methodology. Use the appendix section for supplemental items such as surveys that you create, or I would also suggest putting together a time management plan showing all the work you did on that timeline, a timeline that you're going to include in the appendix section that shows the work you did in 601 as well as the capstone course, because that shows that you really did think it through thoroughly, and it helps kind of provide that recipe to your reader so they can kind of do that checklist. Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do this? And follow that checklist through that timeline. I suggest getting some of the no-brainers out of the way at the beginning of the course when you aren't in the middle of implementation or trying to analyze your results. So the first 2 weeks of the course, if you could take a look through the course and especially go to the week 5 folder where you will see some of the documents that are samples. I'll talk about that in just a few minutes in this presentation. But if you notice in the last week of the course, You have a mentor form. Actually, the mentor form, I believe, is due the 4th week of the course. I would try to get that one out of the way at the very beginning because it's showing that you're working with a mentor, and you should be working with a mentor all the way through the course. And it's just a matter of going and getting someone to acknowledge that they are helping you or being your mentor. And, they're a good listener for you and they can offer you some suggestions. So get the mentor form signed and submitted as soon as possible so that that's out of the way. The title page is another thing that's an easy one to get out of the way. It's simply looking at the sample that is in the week 5 folder and following that and then submitting that title page so that you have it ready, it's done, it's out of your way, not something you need to worry about in that final week of class. Include the limitations I mentioned earlier. Please make sure you're acknowledging all the limitations in your study. This is an action research study, and therefore it's a given that there are going to be limitations. So things like very small class size or limited time frame, even the time of the year, as I mentioned earlier, can be limitations that you include as a paragraph in your methodology section. The literature review has to be 8 pages of text minimum. That means it does not include the cover page and it does not include the reference pages or anything else. It's just the text for the literature review. Again, since that was due the 1st week of class and you're coming in with probably about a half of that finished, I don't expect all 8 pages to be completed in the beginning of this course. And I'm giving you all the way till week 4 to have that revision in. For all the other assignments, you need to follow the 5-day rule. However, the literature review needs to be thorough and it needs to be scholarly, and therefore I'm giving you a little more time on that one throughout the course to work on it. Although I will be providing the grade, and you do need to be providing that original lit review by the due date at the beginning of the course so that I can give you that feedback and you have that to go by as you're working on your literature review to be submitted by the 4th week. Attach all tools such as surveys to the appendix section of your paper. That would be any surveys you write, any cover letters you write if you're putting a cover letter out there to your survey respondents, any type of tables or anything like that. If you're using an observation form in your class, it would be a good idea to use that as a sample. If you have tests that you have given, a pre or a post test or something like that, it's a good idea to also share that as a sample in your appendix section. You don't have to include multiple pages, 25 pages of something, but if you could at least give a snapshot to show a sample, that helps a lot for your reader, especially with that replication that I talked about earlier. Make a timeline I mentioned earlier also and put that in appendix. The appendix section, it is not a requirement. However, it does show an overview of everything that you've done and gives you a lot of credibility to show that you really did plan out your strategy well and that you've covered all the bases in your research and that you're being a good researcher. It also helped me when I did my research, anytime I do my research. The latest one that I did, a study that I just published, took a few years to get our data, and it really helped to have that timeline because we knew that with all that time putting into the actual implementation that it's harder to get in and get those results analyzed and written up, and I was working with a colleague, so it really kept us on a good schedule to have that timeline. Make sure you're smoothing out the rough edges before you submit your final project. That means you should have good transitions from one section to another and that you're not repeating a lot of information from one place to another. Read through it and make sure it flows. More tips, you're going to need some help, possibly. If you do need help throughout the course, you want to contact your instructor. That's me first. I should be your first point of contact. You can contact me through email or phone. I would also suggest if you're struggling with your writing or time management that you keep your advisor informed. Also, the Purdue OWL is a great place to go for APA samples, the apa.org website. Your mentor is also another good person to go to help get some feedback or some suggestions. And also the Concordia Library has samples of fully developed action research projects that you can review to see how they might look. This is a picture of the week 5 folder samples area. It's under required studies, as you can see, and there are several items there that you can just click on and see those samples. And I would suggest going to this section early in the course so that there's no question about any of the documentation that you need to do. Also, there's more samples later on in that week 5 folder. So I just wanted to point out that you can also go to that, scroll down a little bit so you can look through all of them. They're not all listed in that one area. Some helpful resources. We won't go through all of these right now in this presentation. However, this is just to get you started. You can go in here and you can copy paste the web addresses here and find some helpful information, not only on how to put together qualitative or quantitative different types of analyses, but also some exercises or at least some suggestions on how to help you get some quality analysis in your data analysis section, and even how to format a running header in APA with that video that I created at the bottom there of that list. I put together this section on frequently asked questions because I have taught this course several times now, and these are the questions that I often get by students. So this is word for word if you needed to go back and just copy paste the slides. However, I'm going to go over them very quickly with you so that hopefully I will be able to answer questions that you have. Do you have to implement have your literature review completed by Wednesday of week 1? I mentioned earlier that the requirement is 7 pages in week 1, but many people come in with only half finished. If you can submit that literature review during week 1, I am giving you the opportunity to revise it and to extend that revision deadline as long as I get that revision by week 4 on that particular assignment. However, I do have to give you the credit that you get or you earn from that first submission first. So you're going to see that grade in there, and I will update that grade if you do decide to do a revision and have it in by week 4. Are you allowed to revise your work if you receive a less than perfect grade? All work beyond, except for the exception I made for the lit review, must be returned within 5 days after you receive the feedback from me if you decide to do a revision. So the answer is yes, I encourage you to revise to get higher grades. However, I can only accept revisions within 5 days after you have received that feedback. Some people have asked me if you're allowed to change your topic, and I would want you to discuss that with me. We would have to come up with a plan, and it's likely not going to happen because you've gone through 601 and done all the preliminary work coming into your implementation. So it's likely not going to be a way out of your particular topic. However, I would definitely contact me because we can always explore options together. If you're unable to complete an assignment on time, I will accept it as long as you submit it up to 5 days after the due date. You do have to use APA on your action research documentation form. People think they don't have to, but you still should be maintaining the double spacing, the way that you cite sources in APA. Everything pretty much can be the same within the little areas, the little boxes on your form. So I realize that it puts a little bit of a difficult spin on trying to format. However, if you just do the copy pasting in, it should work just fine for you into that documentation form. Do you have to merge the literature review and the documentation form and the appendix items all on one document? Yes, you are supposed to be doing that. It should be one flowing document. Please make sure that you're doing that. And if you have any struggles with that at all, you should probably be contacting tech support or somebody that you know can help you with merging those documents together. This one just shows you that you do have to have it on one document because this is from the assignment directions here, and it tells you to combine all the parts into one document. There is an example there. There's a completed form right there with the rubric, so make sure that you're taking a look. Also make sure that you're following the order that they give you for putting everything together. So you need to have your title page at the top, of course, first, followed by your lit review references, the form, and then the appendix section. More on frequently asked questions. I've been asked this several times. What if you can't implement? You have to implement in this course. It is a requirement. However, if you find that you have done something that you feel you can write a great deal about but you cannot implement, please again contact me because it's likely you might be in the wrong course and need to be taking the thesis course instead of this action research course. If you have trouble with your writing at all or the use of APA, it's a good idea to contact your advisor because there's a writing center tutor that can help you or the advisor can help you find a connection to get some help in the writing center. And if you receive a high number on your originality report and turn it in, that's a likely number to happen because you have already submitted a portion of your literature review to turn it in. So there's going to be a number in there based on your own it's going to go back and see that you already submitted part of that. So that portion is going to show up as a plagiarized portion in your Turnitin. And just know that I'm aware of that. And so what I'm looking for is any of the plagiarism. I will be looking at the report, and beyond looking at your own connection back to the previous submission that you did, I will be looking to make sure that you've cited your sources correctly and that everything that you have in your paper is original, or if it's not, that it's cited correctly. This is my contact information. If you have any doubt at all, please contact me. I'm here to help you. I've taught action research for many years, and I want to make sure that I'm also a resource for you. And I am very willing to help, and if I can't help, I will find a way to get help for you. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation.